Hey guys, this is Eric from TOURNA-MIX, the ultimate mix competition website. I hope you're doing well. Today we're looking at the Vertigo VSE-2 from Vertigo Sound. They also have two other awesome plugins which I'll be reviewing later this month, the VSE-3 compressor and the very cool VSM-4 saturator. All right, but today we're focusing on the VSE-2. So before I get to the plugin review, I just want to give a huge thanks to Vertigo Sound, who were super kind to us this month at TOURNA-MIX. They sponsored both of our mix contests, so you can actually win all three of these plugins. Again, that was the VSE-2, VSE-3, and the VSM-4, okay? If you go to our main homepage, there's a link in the description below. You can see how those prizes are distributed between our two mix contests this month. Awesome plugins. I recently bought them and I've been using them a lot. So as an EQ, this is pretty easy to understand. We've got our on-off switch here, simple as that. We've got a high-pass filter which goes from off to 400 hertz, and in 95% of scenarios, you don't need to high-pass higher than 400. If you do, you can just pop open a different EQ and do if you need to do some sort of filtering effect or whatever, you can do that. But for most purposes, 400 is going to be high enough. And then you've got an input and output control here. This is just a gain staging thing. If your signal is too hot and you notice the plugin is clipping, it's important to keep your eye on that. You don't want to clip the plugin. You can simply back off the input and compensate with the output so you don't lose any volume. All right, I haven't had to use the input and output yet, but it's there if you need it. Okay, and then we've got this little harmonic section, which the VSE-2 is modeled after their hardware EQ. So presumably this harmonics is to, just to try to emulate the saturation that would occur within the hardware unit. I haven't messed around with this too much. I found it pretty subtle. But hey, sometimes subtle saturation is what you want. Either way, you have this little fun knob to play with here. You have an LED here, which will let you know if the saturation is getting intense or not. But again, I've used this mostly for the EQ. All right, you can turn just the EQ on and off here. Okay, so I guess that would be a way to check what the harmonics are doing. If you've dialed that up and you've got some EQ going and you want to just see, well, what's the harmonics doing? You can do that. I haven't had to use this button yet either, but it's there if you need it. And then, of course, the core of the plugin is the 3 bands. So we've got different frequencies we can toggle between, very self-explanatory. We've got a narrow Q, which is the default, which actually emulates the hardware, by the way. In the hardware unit, they don't have a wide Q, which you can see here. I'm switching between the two. In the hardware, it's just the narrow. So you could just not touch these and it would still emulate the hardware, perfectly. But sometimes having a wider Q is handy. So you've got that as an option. And then finally the gain, right? You've got up to 8 dB of gain to the right, 8 dB of gain reduction to the left, but it's important to realize how this is stepped. Okay, so the first notch is a 1 dB increment. Second notch is a 1 dB increment. Then they start to get bigger as you go down. From here to here, it's 1.5 dB, then it's 2 dB, and then it's a full 2.5 dB. So 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5 for a total of 8 dB. Okay, so sometimes you need more EQ than that. So maybe, in certain scenarios, this plugin won't be enough for you. I haven't found so far in doing, I think I've done 3 mixes now with this. I haven't found that this EQ can't handle, anything I throw at it. It's really, really powerful. It has a similar workflow to a 1073, in that it has a high pass filter and 3 bands. But I love that this is continuous. I always found the stepped high pass filter slightly annoying on 1073s. Maybe I'm the exception to the rule there. But between this, just getting rid of, excess low end you don't need, and then really broad kind of cool shaping with the 3 bands, I'm absolutely loving this EQ. Let's have a look and some practical examples, see how it sounds. Oh, just one more quick thing. There is an advanced panel here for some settings you can adjust, like oversampling. I leave that as 16 times by default, and you can change the scale of your plugin if you need to, right? And a few other options here, which we won't get into. It just has to do with how the plugin behaves. So just wanted to mention that before we continue. All right, so let's start with one of my favorite applications for EQ, these kinds of EQs, these analog EQs, and that's on mixbus. So you can see here, I've got this on my mixbus, a little jazz standard here I'm working on, and let's hear the mix, and I'll toggle this on and off. Here we go.
Fly me to the moon, let me play among those stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter or Mars. In other words, please be true. Please be true.
So kind of a ridiculous change there. That is night and day. And, you can see it's just real simple. Like, do I have a high pass on? No, I don't. I'm just pushing up kind of a smiley face style EQ, pushing up 60 hertz by, quite a bit here. What is this? 3.5 dB. Pushing up 5 dB of, or 5.5 dB actually of air. So the air mode, I didn't mention this before. This is just like beyond 10K. It's like almost above what you can hear. Sort of like how the Mag EQ has that 40K, air setting that you can push up. Like no one can hear above 20K, I don't think. So why would you do it? But it's sort of what it does is it reaches down into the realm of EQ that you can hear. So it's just an alternative to 10K. And in this scenario, I found it sounded better. So pushing up the high end, pushing up the low end, and then cutting out some boxy 480. Let me boost the 480 to show you what that sounds like.
Fly me to the moon, let me play among those stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter or Mars. In other words,
so you can hear it just has a really, really great natural sound. It made a huge, huge difference to this particular mix. And, if I exaggerate the high end even more, it still stays smooth. I'm going to push it all the way up here.
Fly me to the moon, let me play among those stars.
Might even sound better like that.
Stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter or Mars. In other words, please be true. Please be true.
All right, you get the idea. Really, really great sound. Let's go take a look at a few other examples. I'm just going to put that back where it was. All right, let's take a look at a song that is being featured this month at TOURNA-MIX. This is a really great cover of the song Banditos by The Refreshments. This is a big hit in the late 90s. And I have an EQ on my mixbus that I felt was helping out a lot. You can see a huge bump at 40 hertz, a little bit of a push at 1.3, and some more air here. Let's have a listen to this on and off.
Like I was a supermodel. We can trust, we'll say nothing to no one, no how, or we'll bust, we'll never crack a smile, or flinch or cry for nobody.
So again, it's not quite as dramatic as in the jazz example, but it's pretty dramatic. You can just hear the mix completely dies without it. Now, there was probably a bit of a level matching issue there, but you can really, really hear, especially the low end, it completely wilts without the plugin. Let's take a look at the overheads from within the same song. Now, I didn't do a ton to the overheads here. You can see here I'm pushing up some air and cutting some 480. Let's just hear that real quick. A little boxier that way. Yeah, I mean, it sounds a lot better, but I wanted to try to push some of these settings just to show you how smooth this is. So let's try it again, and I'll just fiddle around here. Like even that is super smooth compared to right? It's your 10K. See, I don't like 8K. It's nice. Let's hear the wide Q. No. But again, just incredibly smooth, even with 8 dB of air pushed up. Let's cut some more boxiness. Maybe try some low end. Amazing. I just love how smooth this EQ is. And those weren't the settings that I ended up with in my mix, but in solo you can hear that you can really, really take this thing to extremes. Here's the organic kick drum from that song. Let's push that up even more. So since this is a guitar song, let's take a listen to the guitars. We've got these two left-right guitars, kind of rhythm sort of things. If I pull up the Vertigo VSE-2 for both of them, on the left one I am doing a little push at 2K, and then on the right one I'm pushing up 3.8K. All right, and that's all I'm doing to these, with some high passes here, both of them kind of around, I'm going to guess around 120 hertz each. So let me just get rid of those, and let's hear it processed. I'll mute them. Really cleans up the signals in a very, very natural way. I was really happy with the way those sounded. Let's do one final example from our other song that's being featured this month at TOURNA-MIX. This is the band Horizon 17, or Horizon 17 in English, and they have an amazing song called Le Pire. Let's just hear it in the verse here for a quick second. That was actually the rock out section. Here's the verse. Right, so that's my final mixed lead vocal, but the main EQ contributing to the sound is the VSE-2. Let me toggle this on and off.
Il est si bon de croire que tout va mal. Regarde autour de toi, tu n'es pas si mal. Ton pire ennemi t'observe du miroir.
So really, really cleans up the signal. I'm taking out a lot of 1K. I found it had that kind of honky, boxy sound at 1K. Little bit of a boost here with the air, and then cutting some 240. Now later in the chain, I did also do a few other cuts, but this one alone, let's listen in context, makes a huge difference.
Il est si bon de croire que tout va mal. Regarde autour de toi, tu n'es pas si mal. Ton pire ennemi t'observe du miroir. Aie plus d'empathie quand tu bois du noir. Que veux-tu à tout prix si c'est de la pitié?
There's also a pretty big high pass here at I think about 250 hertz. Yeah. So yeah, that's the VSE-2 on vocals. I didn't really need to add too much air, but I've used this on other vocals, and it sounds fantastic. Let's do one more quick example from that jazz song we looked at earlier. Here's the bass in the song. Let me just go to like the verse here. This is with the EQ on. Huge change, right? In this case, I'm doing 8 dB boosts at 1.3K and 2.5K just to really bring up, you know, the mid range. In a song like this, you got to hear that walking bass line. And then it looks like I cut some 60. That was probably just to make room for the kick. So again, you know, here's the bass. Let's listen in context, actually.
Let me play.
Still sounds natural and smooth, but off. Right, in solo you could really hear how it's like what an extreme difference it was, but in the mix it just gives it that extra little bit of definition. It doesn't even really sound EQ'd. I've noticed this EQ just sounds very natural whenever you use it. Let's hear that again. We'll turn it off. When it's off, it just sounds kind of warm and undefined. Yeah, it just perks it up a little bit, and again, I just love the workflow of just selecting these frequencies and just, you know, using your ears, pushing this up, seeing what works. So yeah, great EQ. We're really, really lucky to have this as one of our prizes this month. I'm excited for whoever wins it. Another huge thanks to Vertigo Sound, and for whoever's watching, please subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll talk soon.